Hey, my name's Nicholas. I am trying to create a form of modern alchemy as well as a type of symbolic language tied to the human psyche called the Logos equation to quantify subjective experience into the realm of objective scientific reality. Uh, Simply put, I'm combining the world of spirituality and psychology with the outside scientific realm into a unified theory of understanding. Now, with this, I'm going to go through some brief definitions that we're going to need to run through, and then tie in aspects of human psychology to parts of the periodic table, as well as certain variables that can go with the elements on the periodic table. And then I'll briefly finish up with what my framework I'm going to call the Logos equation is. Now, the periodic table of elements is a chart that organizes all known chemical elements based on their atomic number, or the number of protons in the nucleus. Elements are grouped by their properties, such as whether they are metals, nonmetals, or metalloids, and their electronic structure. Now, ions. An ion is an atom or molecule that has gained or lost one or more electron, giving it an overall positive or a negative charge. This happens because atoms like to have a full outer shell of electrons, and gaining or losing electrons helps them achieve this. Now, cations are positively charged ions formed when atoms lose electrons, and anions are negatively charged ions formed when an atom gains electrons. Another thing is reactivity. Reactivity refers to how likely an element is to react, combine, or interact with other substances. For example, some elements like alkali metals are highly reactive, while others, like noble gases, are very stable and don't react much at all. And malleability. Malleability is the ability of a material, typically a metal, to be shaped or hammered without breaking. So metals like gold and aluminum are malleable and can be molded into different forms. And conductivity. Conductivity refers to the ability of a substance to conduct electricity or heat. Metals are good conductors, meaning they allow electricity to heat and heat to pass through them easily, while nonmetals tend to be poor conductors. Think of all the gold in modern computer chips. Now, melting and boiling points. A melting point is the temperature at which a solid turns into a liquid, and a boiling point is the temperature at which a liquid turns into a gas. These points vary for different elements based on their atomic structure and the type of bonds between atoms. And ionization energy. Ionization energy is the amount of energy required to remove an electron from an atom or an ion. Elements with a high ionization energy hold onto their electrons tightly, while those with a low ionization energy can lose electrons more easily. And oxidation states are when the charge of an atom in a compound, it shows how many electrons an atom has gained or lost compared to its neutral state. For example, sodium has a oxidation state of +1. So when it loses an electron to form Na+. Now, electronegativity is a measure of an atom's ability to attract elements when forming a bond with another atom. Fluorine is one of the most electronegative elements, meaning it strongly attracts electrons into a chemical bond. And electropositivity. Electropositivity is the opposite of electronegativity. It refers to an atom's ability to lose electrons in a bond. alkali metals like lithium and sodium are very electropositive because they easily give their electrons. And tarnishing. Tarnishing is a chemical reaction where a metal, usually a precious metal like silver, reacts with oxygen or sulfur in the air, forming a dull or discolored layer on its top. So when silver tarnishes to form silver sulfide. And reducing. Reducing refers to the process of losing oxygen or gaining electrons during a chemical reaction. A reducing agent is a substance that donates electrons to another substance, causing that substance to be reduced or gain electrons. Now, the first section are alkali metals. These can be like early stages of childhood consciousness. Alkali metals are highly reactive and can explode on contact with water, and water symbolizes the subconscious or life force, connects to high reactivity and volatility in early stages of human development. It's young, malleable, full of energy, but also prone to emotional explosions or a lack of control. Now, alkaline earth metals, the next stage of growth, are more stable and have lower reactivity than alkali metals, and this reflects growing maturity in human consciousness, where there is more structure and stability in one's personality and actions. The concept of forming cations, positively charged ions, also mirrors this process of self-definition or individuation, where an individual starts to form their unique identity. Now, transition metals, you can think of this as groupthink or collective consciousness. Transition metals have many oxidation states mirroring individuals in a groupthink state. They're still working within societal collectives and frameworks, but also potentially ready to shift or evolve into a new understanding of themselves. Now, halogens, a desire for completion, awareness of self, and a needing to complete the whole. That's what the halogen essentially represents. It needs just one more electron to fill their valence shell, which is the outer shell, and can symbolize individuals on the verge of self-actualization, searching for the final piece to make themselves whole. Their high electronegativity represents the intense desire to reach fulfillment or perfection. And the halogens like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astenine are highly reactive elements because they are one electron short of having a complete valence shell, which makes them eager to bond with other elements, particularly with alkali metals and alkaline earth metals, which have an extra electron to give. This craving for completion mirrors how some individuals, especially those who are not fully spiritually awakened or conscious, often seek out external validation, connection to feel whole or complete. In a spiritual or emotional context, someone who is seeking that missing piece of themselves might be drawn to people who may not yet be as spiritually awakened or conscious. These individuals could be unconsciously trying to fill that gap or missing part within themselves, much like how halogens react to fill their outer electron shell, which, following the octet rule, always wants 8 electrons to fully be stable. It can also be shown as an interplay of energies in relationship. So those who are spiritually incomplete may be drawn to others in a way that feels reactive or urgent, seeking something that feels missing. However, like halogens bonding with other elements, this connection may not always be stable or sustainable unless both individuals are align spiritually. If one person is out of balance, the relationship might not bring long-term fulfillment, just like how a chemical bond with halogens might not be as stable as one with a noble gas. And we'll get to that in a second. And just like halogens yearn for that last electron to complete their shell, someone who hasn't yet unlocked their spiritual potential, their full capacity for good, for goodness, for completeness, may feel the urge to seek out relationships or experiences or connections that seem to complete them, but the real transformation comes from within, when the individual realizes that the missing piece is within themselves, and through spiritual awakening, they become whole and self-sufficient. Okay, so ad time. It's me. I'm the sponsor. If you want to support my work and dive deeper, you can check out my Patreon. I put the link in the description, and I'll also pin it in the comments below. So now we're going to go on to noble gases. These represent enlightenment and higher levels of consciousness. Noble gases, being stable and non-reactive, are great representations of individuals who have reached a state of enlightenment. They are content in their completeness and have no need for external or further external interaction. In human terms, this is akin to reaching a state of apatheia, as the Greeks would term it, where you have transitioned emotionally and have gotten rid of egoic reactivity. Now, the noble gases, helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon, are elements with complete valence shells of electrons. That's the outer orbital, making them stable and chemically inert. This stability can symbolize the initial stages of enlightenment, where a person has achieved balance or harmony in the chakra system. These noble gases can represent the 8 chakras that, when aligned, lead to spiritual peace and completeness. There's 7 within the body, but then the first higher dimensional one is up above your head. And this concept is tied into the octet rule, which states that atoms tend to bond in such a way that they fill the outermost electron shell with 8 electrons. This octet rule ensures stability, as a complete valence shell means that an atom is energetically balanced and doesn't need to form bonds with other atoms to fill its shell. Similarly, when our 8 chakras are aligned, we experience a state of spiritual stability and wholeness, just like how a noble gas with its full outer shell. Now, each noble gas represents a key stage of balance in our spiritual journey. The complete alignment of our chakras, when we reach that balance, we are not seeking outside influence for any form of validation, just like how a noble gas doesn't easily bond with other elements. So in this state, we are whole and complete, moving toward a deeper connection with the divine by understanding ourselves on a deeper level. Now, metals, metalloids, and non-metals, these could symbolize different ways of interacting with the world. Metals are active and strong in their structure, representing individuals who are grounded and assertive. And metalloids are a blend of 2 extremes, embodying transitional states for individuals who are moving from one state of consciousness to another, perhaps still integrating parts of their psyche or their shadow. And non-metals, being brittle, are reactive only under specific conditions. And these could reflect individuals who are more fixed in their ways, possibly resistant to change unless forced into transformation. Now, lanthanoids and actinoids, higher dimensional or uniquely evolved individuals. There could be two aspects to this. These elements are special and often rare, much like individuals who stand out due to their unique spiritual or psychological evolution. They also represent radioactive elements, which could symbolize individuals who have a intense energy or aura. They may be disruptive to those around them, but have transformative potential to show people what it is they are unconsciously or subconsciously unaware of. Now, both groups are often referred to as rare earth metals and share many characteristics and terms of their electron configuration, making them chemically and physically similar. So we could also put this in a spiritual or psychological sense that can be mirrored by the human psyche or even higher dimensional realms like heaven or hell. There's a few ways these connections could play out. And heaven and hell are just higher dimensional realms in opposite polarity. So heaven's positive, hell's negative. Now with the psychological connection, there's the shadow self and integration. Now with lanthanides and actinides, they could represent two aspects of the human psyche that are closely related yet distinct, similar to how the conscious and the unconscious mind function together in a person. So these two groups of elements might reflect parts of the individual self that are intertwined. And just like lanthanids and actinids can be difficult to separate, the conscious and unconscious parts of us can sometimes blur together. If anyone's ever done any shadow work, you can tell that it takes a lot of work to actually reflect and course correct. Now, in this case, the lanthanids could symbolize the more conscious, masculine, outward expression of our own personality. These are the things we're aware of and can easily work with. Now, on the other hand, the actinids could represent the deeper, more hidden parts of our psyche, our shadow self, the repressed desires that we have, but it could also be higher dimensional potential that's not fully explored. And these parts are so closely linked that it's difficult to distinguish them, just like how the lanthanids and actinids are often classified together. Now, the integration of these parts, becoming aware of and embracing both the light and dark aspects of the self, is a key part of spiritual and psychological growth. And the fact that they're so intertwined could point to how difficult it can be to separate these parts of the self without proper discernment or awareness. So the other angle we could look at it is higher dimensional beings or entities. These could be angels or demons if you want to use that terminology, and the dual nature that they represent, just like the conscious and subconscious, light and dark, all that. Now, the idea that the lanthanids and actinids could represent higher dimensional beings, including the idea that even negative polarity entities, demons, can present themselves as angels, that is an idea that holds a pretty good amount of weight. So in spiritual traditions, especially esoteric or occult systems, there's often the idea that higher dimensional beings, whether angels, demons, or other spiritual entities, may not always be immediately recognizable for what they truly are. Think anytime someone does a Ouija board and like, it's my grandpa, and it's not their grandpa. So the true nature might be hidden, and they can shapeshift or present themselves in different ways, in different forms. Much like how the lanthanids and actinids share similar properties yet exist in different states. And this duality of light and shadow in spiritual realms mirrors the way that the lanthanids and actinids are similar yet distinct. A being or entity that shows up as an angel may actually have a more complex nature or could be operating in a negative polarity under certain circumstances. But without the proper discernment, it may appear benevolent. Similarly, we might be subconsciously drawn to certain external forces, people, or situations, believing them to be helpful or supportive for us, when in all actuality they might ultimately be unhealthy or disempowering. Now, polarity and the need for discernment is incredibly important. So when it comes to discernment, whether you're dealing with spiritual entities or aspects of your own psyche, the process is about developing the capacity to recognize the true nature of what is being presented to you. Just as the lanthanids and actinids share similar properties but can have vastly different roles in certain contexts. So, for example, the radioactive nature of actinids versus the more stable lanthanids. It's essential to see through the layers of illusion and false appearance to understand what truly is going on under the surface, whether that's in a relationship, a situation, or within our own selves. So, in essence, both lanthanids and actinids could symbolize the complex interplay of light and shadow and the way spiritual and psychological forces can often look similar but require discernment to separate and understand. And higher dimensional beings or forces are not always what they seem. Just like the hidden complexity in these elements requires a advanced level of knowledge to discern. Now, there's also a type of octave in spiritual growth. So the idea of going up octaves in consciousness is very fitting. The octave is a new level of growth and is both a return to an earlier state with a new perspective and an evolution upwards. It mirrors the cyclical nature of spiritual development. And after each cycle, a person might face a new rebirth or a new perspective on the same life lesson, just like notes in a musical scale. Now, there's certain variables we can explore with the way chemicals and atoms interact, as well as the human psyche. Now, to list these out, we'll first start with the first variable, which would be reactivity, reflecting how quickly or intensely a person responds to external stimuli, emotions, or situations. Highly reactive individuals are still processing their environment deeply and may act impulsively, while less reactive people might be more calm, reserved, or introspective. Malleability. This could relate to the flexibility of the individual. So, how open they are to change, learning, and growth. So, highly malleable individuals are more adaptable, while those who are less malleable might be more rigid or fixed in their beliefs and ways of being. Now, conductivity, this could represent a person's ability to connect and interact with others. So, highly conductive individuals might easily resonate or connect with others, while those with low conductivity may struggle with deep, meaningful connections. Now, the melting and boiling points of elements. This could symbolize the emotional or psychological thresholds. So, how much heat, like pressure or stress or challenges, a person can endure before breaking down or transforming. So, a higher melting point would represent a certain level of emotional resilience, while a lower one might reflect more sensitivity or emotional volatility. Now, ionization energy. The energy required to remove an electron can correlate to how difficult it is for someone to let go of old patterns or beliefs or attachments. So, a higher ionization energy means it's harder for someone to change, while a lower ionization energy could indicate a willingness or ease in transformation or adaptability. Now, oxidation states. The various oxidation states of elements in this transition metals group could correlate with how adaptable someone's personality is, how they shift depending on their environment or circumstances. So these individuals may have multiple facets to their personalities or ways of being. Now, electronegativity and electropositivity. This could reflect a person's magnetic pull in relationships and how they can bring or push people away, how they tend to attract or repel energy from others. So, highly electronegative individuals might draw people towards them, perhaps due to a intense need for a connection, while electropositive individuals might give off energy but remain emotionally detached from actual connections with others. Now, the tarnishing and reducing, this could represent the process of growth or transformation. So some people undergo a tarnishing process that requires them to shed old layers of the self before they can emerge into a more pure, reduced, authentic expression of self. It's like a refining process. Now, the Logos equation that I'm working on is a conceptual framework developing the bridge of ancient alchemy, Jungian psychology, and modern science and subatomic physics and particles into a unified system of understanding personal growth and transformation. Now, alchemy has always been a language of transformation, not just in turning lead into gold like in the external world, but in transmuting the human psyche toward stages of enlightenment. So by integrating the symbolic language of alchemy, the structure of the periodic table, and psychological Jungian archetypes, I'm working to create a modern system that maps the personal evolution of an individual that is both scientifically grounded and spiritually meaningful. I'm trying to make a topographical map of the human psyche. Now, this system ties into logos, the principle of divine reason and order. So by identifying patterns in chemistry, energy, and consciousness to show how they mirror human development. So as within, so without. So just as elements evolve towards stability, so too does the psyche move towards wholeness or unity. This work aims to reintroduce alchemy as a practical tool, not only for self-awareness, but also as a guide for personal and collective transformation in today's modern world, which we all really need. So if you found this interesting, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you want to support my work, I've got my Patreon, like I said earlier, down below. And if you found this interesting, I would like to hear from you in the comments and let me know if you would want to talk about it some more. It lets me know that you're interested in this. So, thanks.